Some players shine so bright, so early, that the rest of their story becomes a quiet echo. Tonight, we remember four who reached the summit before their time, whose brilliance burned fast and left us wondering what might have been. The summer of 2006 felt full of promise for a young man from Seattle. Brandon Roy had just been selected 6th overall by the Portland Trail Blazers, a team hungry to rebuild its identity after years of turmoil. Born on July 23, 1984, Brandon had never been the kind of player who seemed destined for stardom from childhood. He wasn't a prodigy who dominated youth leagues or made highlight reels as a teenager. In fact, he struggled with a learning disability that made school difficult, and basketball became his refuge, the place where everything made sense. At the University of Washington, he slowly transformed himself into something special. He wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but he had an uncommon patience, a calmness that seemed to slow the game down around him. By his senior year in 2006, he was named Pac-10 Player of the Year, averaging over 20 points per game and leading the Huskies deep into the NCAA tournament. When Portland called his name on draft night, it felt like the beginning of something beautiful. His rookie season unfolded like a dream written in slow motion. Brandon averaged 16.8 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game, numbers that don't fully capture the way he moved through defenses like water, finding cracks in stone. He won Rookie of the Year with 127 of 128 possible first-place votes, a landslide that announced his arrival. The Trail Blazers broadcast announcer Brian Wheeler gave him a nickname that would follow him forever: the Natural. It fit perfectly. There was nothing forced about Brandon's game, nothing mechanical. He simply played basketball the way some people breathe. The seasons that followed built on that foundation. In 2008, he made his first All-Star team. Then he made it again in 2009, and again in 2010. 3 consecutive All-Star selections before his 26th birthday. Portland fans, who had endured so much disappointment, began to believe again. They believed because Brandon made it easy to believe. He hit game winners with the clock dying, his face expressionless, as if he'd known all along how the story would end. December 18, 2008. The Suns came to Portland, and Brandon Roy put on a performance that still hangs in the Rose Garden's memory like morning fog. 52 points. He made 14 of 27 field goals, 19 of 21 free throws, and 5 three-pointers. He scored from everywhere, in every way, and when it was over, Phoenix had no answers, only respect. Just over a month later, on January 24, 2009, he tied a Portland franchise record with 10 steals against Washington. He was everywhere at once, reading passing lanes like a novel he'd already finished. The 2009 through 2010 season might have been his finest. He averaged over 22 points per game, leading a young Portland team that seemed destined for greatness. LaMarcus Aldridge was growing into an all-star. Young players like Nicholas Batum and Rudy Fernandez surrounded Brandon with energy. The future looked limitless, stretched out before them like an open highway under clear skies. But beneath the surface, something was breaking. Brandon's knees, the foundation of everything he did, were deteriorating in a way that no surgery could fully fix. The cartilage in both knees had worn down to almost nothing. One doctor would later describe them as resembling donuts with all the jelly squeezed out, bone grinding against bone with every step, every jump, every cut to the basket. The pain was constant, a companion that never left, but Brandon barely spoke about it. He simply kept playing, kept carrying his team, kept being the natural, even as his body betrayed him. The 2010 through 2011 season became a battle against inevitability. He played through pain that would have sidelined most players, appearing in 47 games and still averaging over 12 points. But everyone could see something was different. The explosiveness had dulled. The effortless glide to the basket required more effort now. Still, when the playoffs arrived and Portland faced Dallas in the first round, Brandon Roy had one more masterpiece left inside him. April 23, 2011, Game 4. The Mavericks, who would go on to win the NBA championship that year, had dominated Portland through 3 games. In this one, they built a lead that seemed insurmountable, stretching it to 23 points. Brandon had barely played in the first 3 quarters, his knees screaming, his body unable to keep up with his will. But in the 4th quarter, something shifted. He checked back into the game, and suddenly, impossibly, he was the natural again. He scored 18 points in that final quarter. Fadeaway jumpers, drives to the basket, clutch free throws. Every possession felt like a small miracle. The crowd rising to its feet with each basket, the building shaking with the sound of belief returning. Portland won that game by 7 points, and Brandon Roy finished with 24 points, 18 of them when his team needed them most. It was his last moment of pure brilliance, the final time the world would see him play the way he was meant to play. On December 10, 2011, Brandon Roy held a press conference at the Trailblazers' practice facility. He was 27 years old. He announced his retirement from basketball, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of a dream ending too soon. The cartilage in his knees was gone. The pain had become unbearable. Multiple surgeries had failed to give him relief. His doctors told him that continuing to play could leave him unable to walk normally in his 40s or 50s, that the price of a few more years in the NBA might be decades of suffering afterward. He tried a comeback the following year with Minnesota, signing a 2-year contract in December 2012. Hope flickered briefly. Maybe the surgeries had helped. Maybe rest had healed what medicine could not. He played 5 games for the Timberwolves, averaging 5.8 points in limited minutes. But the pain returned, sharp and unrelenting, and the reality became clear. His body couldn't do this anymore. In June 2013, he retired for good, walking away from basketball at age 28. Brandon Roy played only 6 seasons in the NBA. 6 seasons, 3 All-Star selections, and a legacy that lives on in Portland like a song that ended too soon. He finished with career averages of 18.8 points, 4.3 assists, and 4.7 rebounds per game. Numbers that tell part of the story, but miss the poetry of how he played. The way he made difficult shots look easy. The way he carried himself with quiet confidence that never needed to prove itself. Today, Brandon Roy coaches high school basketball in the Seattle area, teaching young players the game he loved, the game that loved him back until his body could no longer hold up its end of the bargain. Those who watched him play in his prime remember everything. The calm, the clutch shots, the feeling that Portland had finally found its next great star. And they remember April 23, 2011, when a player with destroyed knees scored 18 fourth-quarter points in a playoff game, refusing to let his story end without one more perfect chapter. Some peaks arrive early and end too soon, but the view from the summit, however brief, never fades from memory. Memphis, in the 1970s and 80s, was a city where basketball lived in the bones of the community, played on every corner, in every park, where dreams were dribbled on cracked concrete and launched toward rusted rims. Anthony Dion Hardaway was born there on July 18, 1971, into circumstances that could have crushed a lesser spirit. His mother struggled, and young Anthony was raised primarily by his grandmother, Louise. She called him pretty, but in her thick Southern accent, it came out sounding like Penny. The nickname stuck, and the boy became Penny Hardaway, a name that would soon be known across the basketball world. Louise gave him more than a nickname. She gave him stability, discipline, and a foundation of love that allowed his talent to flourish. Penny grew tall and graceful, reaching 6 feet 7 inches with the ball-handling skills of a guard half his size. At Treadwell High School in Memphis, he became a local legend. And then at the University of Memphis, he transformed into a national sensation. His combination of size, vision, and skill reminded people of Magic Johnson, and the comparisons grew louder with each spectacular pass, each impossible finish at the rim. The 1993 NBA draft arrived, and the Golden State Warriors selected Penny 3rd overall. But within moments, he was traded to the Orlando Magic, a young team that had just drafted Shaquille O'Neal the year before. The pairing seemed almost too perfect, like a script written by someone who understood basketball poetry. Shaq, dominant in the paint, unstoppable near the basket, and Penny orchestrating from the perimeter, able to beat defenders off the dribble or find the perfect pass. Together, they would transform Orlando from an expansion afterthought into a powerhouse. Penny's rookie season in 1993 through 94 announced his arrival with quiet authority. He averaged 15.7 points, 6.5 assists, and 5.2 rebounds per game, earning all rookie first-team honors. But the numbers only told part of the story. Penny played with a creativity that felt improvisational, as if he saw passing lanes and scoring opportunities
that existed in dimensions other players couldn't perceive. He threw alley-oops that seemed to defy physics, delivered no-look passes that left defenders frozen, and finished at the rim with a ballet dancer's grace. By his second season, Penny Hardaway had become a superstar. He made his first All-Star team, averaging 20.9 points, 7.2 assists, and 4.4 rebounds per game. The Magic, with Penny and Shaq leading the way, had become one of the most exciting teams in basketball. They ran the fast break like a symphony, Penny pushing the pace, finding teammates in stride, or pulling up for smooth mid-range jumpers that barely disturbed the net. The 1994 through 95 playoffs brought validation and heartbreak in equal measure. Orlando faced the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference semifinals, and Michael Jordan had just returned from his first retirement. The basketball world expected Jordan to reassert his dominance, to remind everyone why he was the greatest. Instead, Penny and Shaq swept the Bulls in 4 games. Penny played like someone who didn't know he was supposed to be intimidated, averaging 25.7 points and 8 assists in the series. Jordan watched from the other side, beaten by a rising force that seemed destined to inherit the throne.
The Magic rolled through the Eastern Conference and reached the NBA Finals, where the Houston Rockets waited. Houston swept Orlando in 4 games, exposing the young team's inexperience, but the loss felt temporary. Penny was only 23 years old. Shaq was 23. They had time. They had chemistry. They had everything except a crystal ball to see what was coming. The following season, 1995 through 96, Penny made the All-Star team again and earned All-NBA first-team honors for the 2nd consecutive year. He also won an Olympic gold medal with Team USA in Atlanta, playing alongside the greatest players in the world and holding his own. Everything pointed toward a long reign at the top of the basketball world. Everything pointed wrong. In the summer of 1996, Shaquille O'Neal left Orlando for the Los Angeles Lakers, signing a massive contract that the Magic couldn't match. The partnership dissolved overnight, and suddenly Penn stood alone as the leader of a franchise that had just lost its most dominant player. He tried to carry the load, averaging 20.5 points and 5.4 assists in 1996 through 97, but the burden was heavy, and his body began to send warning signals. Midway through that season, Penny collided with Joe Dumars during a game. The impact seemed routine at first, just another physical play in a physical sport. But something had torn in Penny's left knee. Meniscus damage. He missed 23 games, returned, and tried to play through discomfort that grew worse with each game. The following season brought more knee problems. Another meniscus tear, this time requiring surgery that sidelined him for significant time. Basketball at the highest level requires explosiveness, the ability to change direction instantly, to accelerate past defenders, to jump high and land hard hundreds of times per game. Penny's knees, which had carried him to stardom, were breaking down under the load. He was only in his mid-20s, but his body was aging faster than his birth certificate suggested. In 1999, Doc Rivers, who was coaching the Orlando Magic, sat down with Penny for a conversation that must have felt like a funeral. "We're going to have to rebuild your image," Doc told him. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Penny Hardaway, the superstar, the heir to Magic Johnson's throne, needed his image rebuilt. That summer, Orlando traded him to the Phoenix Suns, ending an era that had promised so much more than it delivered. Phoenix gave Penny a fresh start, but fresh starts don't heal damaged knees. He played 60 games in his first season with the Suns, averaging 16.9 points and 5.5 assists, respectable numbers, but a shadow of his peak. He made one more All-Star team in 2000, but even that felt like a gesture of respect for what he had been, rather than recognition of what he was. The decline continued, slow and sad and inevitable. Penny bounced to the New York Knicks, then to the Miami Heat. Each stop brought diminishing returns, fewer minutes, lower statistics, less impact. His final season, 2007 with Miami, saw him average just 3.8 points per game in 28 contests. On December 12, 2007, the Heat waived him. He was 36 years old, but his prime had ended a decade earlier. Penny Hardaway's career statistics read like a tragedy compressed into numbers. 15.2 points, 5 assists, 4.5 rebounds per game across 14 seasons, 4 All-Star selections, 3 All-NBA First-Team honors in his first 4 years, then a long, slow fade into roles that didn't fit the player he had been. Orlando inducted him into their franchise Hall of Fame in 2017, honoring the years when he and Shaq seemed capable of anything, when the future stretched out before them like an open court with no defenders in sight. Today, Penny coaches the University of Memphis men's basketball team, leading young players through the same city where his grandmother once called him pretty, and the nickname became legend. He teaches them the game he mastered too briefly, the skills that made him special, the dream that lasted just long enough to break his heart and ours. Some people remember the alley-oops, the no-look passes, the way he moved like liquid grace in a 6'7" body. Others remember the what-ifs, the parallel universe where his knees stayed healthy and he and Shaq won multiple championships together. Both memories are true, and both are painful in their own way. Penny Hardaway peaked at 24 years old, blessed with every gift except the one that mattered most: time. The game he played so beautifully demanded more than his body could give, and the light that burned so bright in Orlando flickered too soon, leaving us with highlights and memories and the quiet question that haunts every early peak: what if he had stayed healthy just a little bit longer? The autumn of 2005 brought an unusual moment to the NBA draft. High school players had long been allowed to jump directly to professional basketball with varying degrees of success, but this particular draft would be the last to allow it. The league had decided to implement an age minimum of 19, effectively ending the practice that had produced stars like Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron James. Among the final group permitted to make that leap was a 17-year-old center from New Jersey named Andrew Bynum. Born October 27, 1987, Andrew had dominated high school basketball at St. Joseph High School in Metuchen. He averaged 22.4 points, 16.8 rebounds, and 5.3 blocks per game as a senior, earning McDonald's All-American honors and attracting attention from scouts who saw physical gifts that couldn't be taught. He stood 7 feet tall with a soft touch around the basket, and the Los Angeles Lakers, a franchise always hungry for great centers, selected him 10th overall. When Andrew Bynum stepped onto an NBA court on November 2, 2005, he became the youngest player in league history to appear in a game. 17 years and 244 days old, still more child than man, thrown into competition against grown professionals who had spent years developing their craft. The Lakers understood he needed time, patience, and guidance. They provided all three, assigning Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the league's all-time leading scorer and one of its greatest centers, to work with Andrew as a special assistant coach. The early years moved slowly. Andrew played sparingly, learning the professional game's rhythms, adjusting to the speed and physicality that separated high school from the highest level. In 2007 through 2008, his 4th season, everything began to click. He averaged 13.1 points and 10.2 rebounds per game, showing flashes of the dominance scouts had projected. The Lakers, led by Kobe Bryant in his prime, won 57 games and reached the NBA Finals, where the Boston Celtics defeated them in 6 games. But Andrew was young, still growing into his body and his role. The Lakers believed in his potential enough to sign him to a 4-year, $58 million contract extension in October 2008, a massive investment in a player who had yet to prove himself consistently. That faith seemed justified the following season when Los Angeles won the NBA championship, defeating the Orlando Magic in the finals. Andrew contributed 7.9 points and 6.3 rebounds per game in the playoffs, playing behind Pau Gasol but showing steady improvement. The 2009 through 2010 season brought another championship. The Lakers defeated the Boston Celtics in 7 games, avenging their loss from 2 years earlier. And Andrew Bynum, at age 22, had 2 championship rings. He was developing the post moves Kareem had taught him, the footwork and patience required to dominate in the paint. When healthy, he looked like the franchise center the Lakers had drafted, the player who could carry them into the future after Kobe's inevitable decline. January 21, 2009, marked Andrew's career high. The Lakers faced their crosstown rivals, the Clippers, and Andrew scored 42 points on 14 of 18 shooting from the field. He dominated near the basket, using his size and touch to score seemingly at will. The performance felt like a declaration, proof that he could be more than just a role player on a championship team, that he could be the centerpiece of an offense. The 2011 through 2012 season
became Andrew's masterpiece, the year when all the potential finally crystallized into sustained excellence. He averaged 18.7 points, 11.8 rebounds, and 1.9 blocks per game, leading the Lakers in rebounds and finishing third in the entire NBA in double-doubles. He made his first and only All-Star team at age 24 and earned All-NBA second-team honors. Everything scouts had dreamed about in 2005 had come true. Andrew Bynum, at 24 years old, looked like a perennial all-star center, the kind of player franchises build around for a decade.
But beneath the statistics and accolades, complications were forming. Andrew's relationship with Kobe Bryant had never been simple. Kobe, obsessed with winning and demanding perfection from teammates, sometimes clashed with Andrew's more laid-back approach. The two coexisted successfully during championship runs, but tension lingered beneath the surface. More troubling were whispers about Andrew's passion for basketball, questions about whether he truly loved the game or simply tolerated it as a means to wealth and fame. The summer of 2012 brought a blockbuster trade. The Lakers, desperate to maximize Kobe's remaining prime years, traded Andrew Bynum to the Philadelphia 76ers as part of a 4-team deal that brought Dwight Howard to Los Angeles. Philadelphia fans rejoiced, believing they had acquired a young all-star center who would lead them back to relevance in the Eastern Conference. The trade made sense for everyone involved. It made sense until Andrew's knees refused to cooperate. He never played a single game for Philadelphia. Not one. His knees required surgery before the season began, and the recovery went poorly. Setbacks followed setbacks. Optimistic timelines proved false. The entire 2012 through 2013 season passed without Andrew Bynum touching the court in a 76ers uniform. Philadelphia fans, who had celebrated his arrival, watched helplessly as their hoped-for savior became an expensive ghost. The following summer, Cleveland took a chance, signing Andrew to a 2-year contract worth $24 million. Perhaps a change of scenery would help. Perhaps rest had healed what surgery could not. The Cavaliers needed a center, and Andrew, when healthy, was still only 26 years old. Hope springs eternal in professional sports, even when common sense suggests otherwise. Andrew played 24 games for Cleveland in 2013 through 2014, averaging 8.4 points and 5.3 rebounds in just over 20 minutes per game. The numbers didn't capture the dysfunction. In one infamous practice, Andrew reportedly shot the ball every single time he touched it, ignoring teammates, disregarding plays, behaving in a way the organization deemed conduct detrimental to the team. The Cavaliers suspended him in December and eventually released him in January 2014. The Chicago Bulls signed him 10 days later, then immediately waived him without ever putting him in a game. The Indiana Pacers gave him one final chance, signing him in February 2014. He appeared in 2 games, playing a total of 4 minutes, before knee swelling forced him back to the sideline. On March 1, 2014, the Pacers waived him. Andrew Bynum had played his last NBA game at age 26, 3 years younger
than the age when many centers enter their prime. The aftermath brought explanations and context. Trevor Ariza, Andrew's former Lakers teammate, revealed that Andrew's mother had passed away during his playing career, a personal tragedy that affected him deeply but received little public attention. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who had worked closely with Andrew, gave a more damning assessment. He didn't like the game, but he liked making millions, Kareem said, suggesting that Andrew had never developed the passion necessary to sustain excellence, that basketball was a job rather than a calling.
Andrew Bynum's career statistics tell the story of what was and what might have been. 11.5 points, 7.7 rebounds, 1.6 blocks per game across 8 seasons. 2 NBA championships, 1 All-Star selection, 1 All-NBA second-team honor. He earned over $70 million playing basketball, achieving a level of financial success most people can't imagine. Yet, his career is remembered primarily for unfulfilled potential, for what he could have been if his knees had held up, if his passion had matched his physical gifts, if circumstances had aligned differently. Today, Andrew lives away from basketball, away from the spotlight that once followed him. He peaked at 24, won championships at 22 and 23, and walked away from the game at 26, leaving behind highlights that hint at greatness and a cautionary tale about the fragility of athletic careers. Some players lose their prime to injuries, others to circumstances. Andrew Bynum lost his to a combination of both, his body failing just as questions about his commitment to the sport reached their loudest volume. The youngest player ever to appear in an NBA game became one of its most complicated what-ifs. Brilliant when everything aligned, but unable to sustain that brilliance long enough to write the ending his talent deserved. The 2009 NBA draft was loaded with talent that would reshape the league. Stephen Curry went 7th to Golden State. James Harden went 3rd to Oklahoma City. Both would become MVP-caliber players, future Hall of Famers who defined their era. But on draft night, the Sacramento Kings selected Tyreke Evans 4th overall, believing they had found their franchise cornerstone, the player who would lead them back to the glory days of the early 2000s when they battled the Lakers in legendary playoff series. Tyreke stood 6 feet 6 inches tall and weighed 220 pounds. Built like a small forward, but with the ball-handling skills and court vision of a point guard. His physical profile was unusual, not quite fitting any standard position, and that versatility seemed like his greatest asset. He could guard multiple positions, create his own shot, facilitate for teammates, and attack the basket with power that smaller guards couldn't match. The Kings, struggling through years of mediocrity, saw him as the answer to prayers they'd been whispering since their golden era ended. His NBA debut arrived like a thunderclap on October 28, 2009. The Kings faced the Jazz in Salt Lake City, and Tyreke Evans put up numbers that seemed almost fictional. 22 points, 7 rebounds, 12 assists, 9 steals, only 2 turnovers.
The 9 steals set an NBA record for most ever by a rookie in a single game, and the all-around brilliance of his performance announced that Sacramento had drafted someone special, someone capable of doing everything on a basketball court.
The rookie season that followed built on that stunning debut. Tyreke won 3 Rookie of the Month awards, the most any player in Kings franchise history had ever won in a single season. He averaged 20.1 points, 5.3 assists, and 5.1 rebounds per game, numbers that placed him in rare historical company. Only Magic Johnson and Oscar Robertson, 2 of the greatest players in basketball history, had previously averaged at least 20 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds in their rookie seasons. Tyreke's advanced statistics were equally impressive. An 18.2 player efficiency rating, 2.2 value over replacement player, 1.3 box plus minus. By every measure, he was thriving. The national media took notice. When the Rookie of the Year balloting concluded, Tyreke Evans won comfortably, receiving 58 of 119 first-place votes. Stephen Curry finished second with 16 first-place votes. The comparison would haunt basketball discourse for years afterward, especially as Curry developed into a 2-time MVP and the greatest shooter in NBA history. But in that moment, Tyreke's victory seemed justified. He had posted the better traditional statistics, carried a heavier burden as his team's primary creator, and done things only Magic Johnson and Oscar Robertson had accomplished. But the peak had arrived too soon, and everything afterward felt like descent. Tyreke's second season brought a puzzling drop in production. His scoring average fell to 17.8 points per game, despite playing more minutes and taking more shots. His assists dropped to 5.6 per game, and his overall efficiency declined across the board. Some of the decline could be attributed to increased defensive attention, opponents game planning specifically to slow him down, but other factors were at play. The Kings, uncertain about how to maximize Tyreke's talents, began experimenting with his position. They moved him away from point guard, the position where he'd thrived as a rookie, shifting him to shooting guard and small forward. The changes disrupted his rhythm, forcing him to play off the ball more, to function as a shooter when shooting had never been his strength. Tyreke's three-point percentage, never good, settled into a career pattern of mediocrity. He shot 29% from beyond the arc for his career, a weakness that became more glaring as the NBA evolved into a three-point obsessed league. The third season brought more of the same. Decent numbers, 16.5 points per game, but no growth, no trajectory pointing upward toward stardom. The Kings, frustrated with their continued losing despite Tyreke's presence, began to question whether he was the franchise player they'd believed him to be. Behind the scenes, reports emerged of dysfunction, of a young player who didn't mesh with changing coaching staffs and front office philosophies, of a team that had failed to build a coherent roster around their Rookie of the Year. In June 2013, the Kings traded Tyreke to the New Orleans Pelicans, ending his Sacramento tenure after just 4 seasons. New Orleans offered a fresh start, a chance to prove his rookie season had been real and repeatable, but the results disappointed. He averaged 15.2 points in his lone season with the Pelicans, shooting a career-worst 38.3% from the field before returning to Sacramento the following year in free agency.
The second stint in Sacramento lasted one season before Tyreke moved again, this time to the Memphis Grizzlies in 2016. Memphis, known for their defensive identity and grinding style, seemed an odd fit for a player whose game relied on open-court creativity. But Tyreke found a brief resurgence there. In 2017 through 2018, playing primarily off the bench, he averaged 19.4 points per game, with impressive efficiency, winning multiple Player of the Week awards and reminding people of the talent that had won him Rookie of the Year honors 8 years earlier. That resurgence attracted attention. The Indiana Pacers signed Tyreke to a one-year, $12 million contract in July 2018, hoping he could provide veteran scoring punch off their bench. He played in 47 games, averaging 10.2 points, before disappearing from the lineup in March 2019. The Pacers initially listed him as personal reasons for his absence, but the truth emerged slowly and sadly. In May 2019, the NBA announced that Tyreke Evans had been banned from the league for violating the league's anti-drug program. The ban would last a minimum of 2 years until 2021, after which he could apply for reinstatement. The announcement shocked many who had followed his career, adding a tragic dimension to a story that already felt incomplete. Details remained private, protected by league policy, but the consequences were clear. At age 29, just entering what should have been his veteran prime, Tyreke Evans was banned from playing NBA basketball. The ban ended in 2021, and Tyreke applied for reinstatement. The NBA denied his application. He never played in the league again, his career ending not with a farewell tour or a triumphant comeback, but with bureaucratic rejection. He moved overseas, playing in Taiwan and other international leagues, earning a living from the game, but far from the spotlight that had shone so brightly on that October night in 2009 when he scored 22 points and recorded 9 steals in his NBA debut. Tyreke Evans finished his NBA career averaging 15.7 points, 4.8 rebounds, and 4.6 assists per game across 10 seasons. His rookie season remained his statistical peak, a fact that becomes more unusual the longer you consider it. Most players improve in their second and third seasons, building on their rookie foundation, growing into roles that match their expanding understanding of the professional game. Tyreke went backward, never again reaching the heights he'd achieved as a 20-year-old, learning the NBA on the fly. Basketball historians debate what went wrong. Some blame the Kings for mismanaging his positional development, for moving him away from point guard where he'd excelled. Others point to his shooting limitations, the failure to develop a reliable three-point shot in an era when perimeter shooting became essential. Still others mention the personal circumstances we may never fully understand, the pressures and challenges that exist behind the statistics and highlight reels.
Only 4 players in NBA history have averaged at least 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists as rookies: Oscar Robertson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Tyreke Evans. That list represents the absolute elite of basketball royalty, names that belong in conversations about the greatest players ever. Tyreke's presence on that list stands as a monument to what he accomplished in year 1 and a reminder of how differently his career unfolded afterward. The trajectory that should have led to all-star teams and playoff success instead led to journeyman seasons and ultimately banishment from the league. Today, Tyreke's story is told as a cautionary tale about wasted potential, about the complexity of player development, about how talent alone isn't enough without the right circumstances, coaching, and personal choices. His rookie season lives on in highlight videos and statistical databases, a time capsule of brilliance that never quite returned. Those who watched him that first year remember a player who seemed capable of anything, whose combination of size, skill, and athleticism suggested a decade of dominance. What followed instead was a long, slow decline, punctuated by brief moments of resurgence, ending far too soon and leaving questions that may never have satisfying answers. 4 stories, 4 peaks that arrived before their time. Brandon Roy and his destroyed knees, Penny Hardaway and his shattered partnership, Andrew Bynum and his fading passion, Tyreke Evans and his unrealized promise. Each one shined brilliantly, even if briefly, and their light still flickers in memory. Rest now, knowing their greatness was real, even when it couldn't last. Some mountains are climbed early, and the view from the summit, however temporary, remains breathtaking forever.